Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Friday the 20th of January. My name is Rachel Parker. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the rector or the priest responsible for Dayspring Ministries at St. Mary's Edgerton, St. Thomas Wainwright, and here, St. Saviour's in Vermilion. And that is part of the Diocese of Huron in the Anglican Church of Canada. And we are located in the southeastern part of Alberta. So glad to have you here right before the weekend. I hope you've got some big plans, or maybe your big plans are just to kick back and relax. I hope you do whatever heals or soothes your soul this weekend. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this idea that I got from a book I'm reading, A Victim of Grace by Robin Jones Gunn. I think I didn't bring the book with me. I should have. But this really good book I'm reading about how we find ourselves being victims of grace. And that sounds awful, like victim of anything. But those moments when we realize that that God is working grace in our lives and it's incredible and we didn't even realize it was coming. I think that's the victim part, that we're surprised by it. And one of the things she talks about is during the year, but she prepares for the coming of the new year. She took some time one year to ask God for some message, something that she would work on for that year. She called it her banner word. And she listened and she heard a word. And I can't remember, but I think the word she was talking about was a sacrifice. And it was a tough word, because who wants to hear that, the message or the learning you're going to have for the next year is sacrifice. But she was able to look back over her year and through the year and working with that word and realizing how powerful it was. Because sacrifice, it sounds like, you sacrifice chocolate for the season of Lent. You sacrifice your time to go and pick up your neighbor from the doctor or to do a favor for someone. Sacrifice sounds like we've given up something. So, something's really important to us for, something else. And the truth is that sacrifice can indeed, maybe should indeed, be giving up something really important to us, but for a good reason. When we sacrifice our worship to God, we aren't like, a sacrifice can't be something that we take away from ourselves, and yet like we have to pull it out of our hands. Like I keep imagining that whole Charlton Heston, rip this from my gun from my cold dead hands. Sacrifice, truly, in the best sense of the word, should not be something that's being ripped away from us. Sacrifice should be something that we willingly give up. And often it is something that's important to us. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a sacrifice. But when we give that up, when we give something up, not chocolate for Lent, things like that, when we sacrifice something for something greater than we are, it is because we recognize that it is better given away than held on to. When I sacrifice worship, when I go to God and I say, I am here and I give of myself, I'm sacrificing those parts of myself that need to be taken away, those parts of me, that the anger or jealousy or fear or anxiety, those things of myself, I'm giving them to God to be used up, to be taken away from me, because they're not doing me or God any good. We talk about in the Old Testament, there's a lot of talk about sacrifice and sacrificial lambs, and those things are given up on behalf of. So a lamb was sacrificed so that the person didn't have to sacrifice themselves. It was a substitution. But in the New Testament, we look at sacrifice in a completely different way. God sacrificed his son, Jesus Christ, so that we would not have to worry that we need to be the sacrifice. And it was the final sacrifice. God had never intended that we be bloody-minded people, giving up, like the old gods about, the firstborn child being sacrificed to the gods. The idea of that makes me shudder, and I can only imagine that God shuddered as well. God never asked that any of the children created in God's own image would be given up for him. That wasn't his idea, I think. I think that was a human construct. So this idea, she had this word sacrifice. And through her years, she was able to look and see that, yes, indeed, she was called to give things up. And there were parts of her life she had to sacrifice. But at the same time, she could, looking back on it, see the good that came of that. By getting rid of the chaff, we are better able to see the grain. And so that was, I think that was the word, or that was the essence of what was happening. But I got thinking about that and thinking, okay, God, at the beginning of 2023, is this something that I should do? Something I could do? Is there a word? Is there something I should be focusing on at this point in my life, at least this next little while? And at first, the word I felt and heard and saw everywhere was intention and intentional. Praying with intention, working with intention. I do a lot. Like, I volunteer for things and I'm busy in my job and I love to do this. And I keep myself really busy. And quite often I find myself getting kind of burnt out. But it's because I am just throwing myself willy-nilly at everything. I'm not being intentional about what I'm doing. So right now, my focus is completely on making this video. I'm not worried about other things that are happening. My phone is turned off. I'm focusing only on doing this because I want to be intentional about this. I'm praying with intention. With intentions, yes, like praying for members of our YouTube community here who have asked me for prayer, praying for my own family, for health for my husband, for my congregations, and for peace and for discernment and things like that. But praying not just intentions in prayer, but praying with intention. That when I come into prayer, this time will be a time focused on God and my relationship with God and listening and sharing what is truly on my heart. I am praying with intention. Living with intention, as I said, doing this video, paying attention to attention and with the intention of doing this. But really focusing on the now and not worrying about tomorrow. The next item on the agenda, things like that, but really being able to focus with intention on what's in front of me. And I'm trying really hard to do that. And it's really beautiful because I'm finding that being focused on where I am and the task at hand or the people at hand is life-giving. It's incredible to not be scatterbrained and trying to multitask. The fact is I can't multitask. If I'm taking notes, I'm thinking about the note I'm taking. I'm not listening. I do that when I watch Beau the Fifth Column. I'll be listening to him and all of a sudden I get an idea from what he said and I'll write it down and realize I have to go back and rewind the last minute because I didn't actually hear him. So contrary to what everybody says about multitasking, I believe I'm the only person who really actually can't multitask. I need to be intentional about the task at hand. As the year has gone on, last couple of weeks, I've also noticed that God seems to have given me a second word. The word grace. It is appearing everywhere I go. I ran into a person whose name was Grace. I'm reading this book and I've read it 4 or 5 times because we're doing it for a book study. Rachel Held Evans on Wholehearted Faith. And I've read it 4 or 5 times already in the past 6 months. However, I'm reading it again and it's like grace, grace, grace. Every other page seems to say grace. The book I'm reading about victims of grace, this word grace is popping up all the time. And it is beautiful. It is reminding me that grace is that gift that God gives to me that I can't earn it. I don't even expect it. It is just this gift that is presented to me. And if I'm willing to open it, I am filled with love and hope and peace and find answers to questions that I didn't know I was asking or was having trouble articulating. But grace opens up a new world for me to understand that. So I'm not entirely sure what grace will look like, just as I'm not entirely sure what the word intention will look like throughout 2023. However, I am very excited that I have been doubly gifted with these 2 words that I think will probably become very much interwoven through this year. Intention and grace. Where might they come? One last thing about grace. Ever since my husband got sick, I have been trying to keep my head above water, so to speak, and trying to find the gift of grace in things. So I've been putting on my Facebook feed unexpected graces. I think I'm up to about number 68 now. And these are just things that all of a sudden pop up that most times actually have been there all along. But for whatever reason, I'm only now recognizing. These are all moments of grace. So yes, indeed, I do wonder how intention and grace might unfold in my life over the next year. But I really do wonder even more how my understanding of intention and grace might help me to give gifts of these things to other people in the year to come. So, homework for the weekend. What might your word or words be? What might God, if you believe in God, be suggesting to you your word might be? Or what does the universe throw out there for you? What is it that has caught your ear or is floating around in your mind that's making you think? Maybe that's something you could think on. Have a great weekend. I will see you on Sunday for Gospel on the Go, if that's your thing, or Monday for Church at Home with Rachel. Just remember, you are loved. You are beautiful. You are incredible. And those are not just pithy sayings. They are truths. God bless you, my friends.